Hi, welcome to Coffee with Kim. I am Kim Bassett, your host. I hope got to see a little bit of a taste of today from yesterday. We had Dorothy come on, but this is a really special day. We all have situations, we all have relationships in which there's times or moments of conflict. And sometimes those moments are short, sometimes they're really long. And we need to have those tools that shift us out of that and being able to connect and have those meaningful relationships. So here we go. Today on Coffee with Kim, coming from Georgia is Dorothy Andreas. For over 40 years, Dorothy has been leading teams through conflict. Her award-winning strategies have been featured in numerous international publications for over 3 decades. As an award-winning entrepreneur, author, keynote speaker, business growth coach, wife, and mother, she has navigated almost every type of conflict that humans encounter. Dorothy will deconstruct the 3 essential elements in resolving conflict: embracing, educating, and execution. She will also weave in executive business growth strategies. Dorothy, welcome to Coffee with Kim.
Kim, thank you so much for having me on today. It's really an honor and a pleasure to be here talking about this juicy subject of conflict. Right?
It really is juicy. And I found myself, oh my gosh, I'm so excited about her. And I just wanted to talk about you because our connection that we had this last week in discussing today was so meaningful to me and so powerful that it literally carried me through the week. And so it is such an honor, so much excitement to have you on here.
Oh, thank you, Kim. Thank you. It was a wonderful conversation, very, very authentic and profound. So I'm glad we're able to share that with some of your viewers today.
Oh, absolutely. And yours as well. So I want you to be able to hear from her yourself. So like we do on Coffee with Kim, we're going to have a little bit of time with Dorothy.
So yes, I mean, thank you so much. So the reason that behind this book, Conflict Revelation, is, I have spent 40 years as an entrepreneur. I've started numerous companies, left college when I was 19, really had no idea what I was doing, no money, no support, no nothing, except for a will and a desire. And over the years, the more employees I had, I really started looking at human behavior. And, I come from the service industry, so very, very high turnover. And I really didn't want that in my business. And I started realizing that there were a few key elements that would really allow me to keep staff in place with me and keep staff like thrilled in their job, not just showing up to work every day. And I feel very fortunate that that's, when I look at my career, I feel like that's what I've been, fortunate and blessed enough to have. So, I wrote the book because I was asked to do a workshop for a restaurant chain for their general managers on conflict resolution. And at the end of the workshop, the CEO walked in the room at the last minute, came over and said, "Do you have a book on this? These are principles I've never heard about before." And I said, "Well, I was thinking about writing one. Let me go home and start that." So I did. And a few months later, it came out. Yes.
It's really interesting, right? I truly believe we all have at least one or multiple books inside of us that we need to release. Yes. Because everybody says, well, they don't really need to hear my story or my story doesn't matter. It's the same as everybody else's. And I did the same thing. Mm-hmm. And the fact that you took action, having someone doing that, I think is so profound. What can you give us one or two of those things that he was really honing in on?
So in the book, Conflict Revelation, which really came out of the workshop that I teach, there are 3 essential elements. The first one is really embracing conflict within ourselves and conflict within our immediate community, whether that's our family, our company, the community, volunteer, fundraising, whatever it is. Conflict is inevitable. And the more we embrace the idea and become comfortable with who do we get to be to manage conflict with other people in other situations. So it's like relationships and situations that cause conflict. So embracing the conflict within us. And by that, I mean, when somebody really is pushing our buttons, like really, really pushing our buttons,
Yeah.
they are speaking to an unhealed wound in us. Otherwise, it would be a neutral. So, all events are neutral. They only have the meaning that we attach to them. So when somebody's doing something in our business or in our family, and we are getting really triggered and reactivated by it, it's really our opportunity to look at what is it about us that makes me so reactive to this situation. And that is, in the service industry, when there's a lot to manage with service staff, and mostly a lot of service people are really coming from difficult situations, and they show up with a smile on their face and they deliver great service. And I have so much really tremendous respect for them. So I always felt like, my goal was to get over myself and really help them to grow. And I could only do that by looking at what was triggering me and where was there room for growth. So that's the first element, is really embracing what conflict looks like.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable, right?
It is. It's very uncomfortable. It's because what happens is when we look at how conflict lands on us, it usually is linked and related to something from our family of origin when we were very young, often before we even remember. Like most people can't remember, like before they're in kindergarten or something.
Yeah.
Things happened in our home of origin that imprinted on us. And so then we start living our life as if like that's the reality. But that's only the reality for us. That is not the reality for anybody else. So when I would see people show up in my company, and they would be very angry, what I would realize was they're reacting to something that's an unresolved wound within themselves. And they're getting triggered by something that our ego really keeps us from looking underneath, like peeling back the onion layers, right? So the more we can look at where does this come from, and if we can go back and source what were the earliest memories we have around whatever particular kind of conflict it is, it really helps us to sort of get a sense of clarity and confidence in ourselves. And the more, our ego is designed to keep us from seeing the truth. The more we press into that uncomfortable truth, the more growth we really have. And it can be very hard because, the number one fear of humans is, it's not fear of spiders. It's not fear of public speaking. It's fear of being separated from our family, from our tribe, and in order to access our own wounds, we have to look at the shortcomings of the family who raised us, whatever that looks like.
I think that you really kind of touched on something and kind of on something inside of me when you said that, because I know when we had, I was with my 6 kids, we were a big cohesive family, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when we moved, half of the family here to Las Vegas and the other half stayed in Dallas, it was hard. It was hard. And I think it triggered a lot of things in all of us. And so when you said that separation part, I would agree with you on that. What are some tools? Okay, there's that awareness piece, right? Okay.
Awareness really is the first piece. And so, the book Conflict Revelation, I will hold it up right here.
Yes, please.
Revelation, available on Amazon. So the first part of the book is on embracing. The second part of the book is on educating ourselves. And that really is where we get busy. We get to work on ourselves, because when we are just blaming other people, using crutches, whatever crutch we use to numb our pain rather than deal with it, whether that's drinking, shopping, workaholism, alcoholism, whatever it is, drugs that sort of calm our mind down. And I'm not saying there's not a need for those in specific cases, but it's easier to find a crutch than it is to look at the truth. And so when we really look at the truth, and how we know where to go is just look at ourselves and where we get triggered. I think the current political scene is a perfect example of it. So, right, if you're on one side or the other, and I want to be very clear, this is not about either side.
Yes. Yes.
It's you look at one person and you absolutely go ballistic about how they call people names. And you're posting on your Facebook page or your Instagram page about what a flippin' jerk this guy is, and the orange and all, whatever names you're calling him
Yeah.
for the fact that he called people names. That's not a neutral for you. That is an unresolved wound about something in your life, why people trigger you when they do that. If you're on the other side and you look at it and you're like, oh dear God, this is a little bit scary. There's like an out of check with reality here.
Mhm.
If we notice either one of these people neutrally, it's not a wound for us. When we get reactive to that and we start really finding ourselves getting impassioned about how angry and upset we are, it is our opportunity to really look at, how am I like that?
Yeah.
And people don't want to do that. So, when we start educating ourselves on where our pain points are and where our growth opportunity is, it really changes the game. That is truly the game changer, the educating ourselves, because we've got to live a life of uncontested truth, of rigorous honesty, being honest with ourselves about how does being a victim to somebody else's behavior serve us.
Oh my goodness.
Yes,
That's,
it's a comfort place, right?
it is.
I mean, Kim, truly think about this. If we grew up in a family where we were somehow victimized, we're always, our whole life, replicating that pattern, looking for the person subconsciously or consciously that we bring in who's going to do that same thing, because we think if we fix them, we fix ourselves. And then when we realize we have no control over fixing anybody else, we're left with ourselves. And, if you're not doing the work on yourself, you slip into victim mode and you can enroll people into your victim story or whatever your archetype is. And it prevents us from growing. It really prevents us from growing.
It does. That's when I started doing the work on myself and I got to this specific spot you're talking about, right? That triggered. I always wanted someone else to, I didn't need to get fixed. You need to change this. I will be fine if this person changes this, if my husband changes this, if my daughter or son stops doing this, if my mom or my dad stops doing this, as long as everybody else is fixed, I'm okay. And
Right.
that was huge for me, right?
Huge. That's a huge epiphany, Kim. And really, it's scary. Like you said, it's scary, right?
Yeah, because I literally had to go kind of within and I was like, okay, what do I do? How do I handle this? And to develop those tools, it's not easy. So I'm curious. So curious, I'm going to get the book, right? I wish I'd had time to get the book beforehand, but so what are some of the things like, it's that awareness, it's the education. And once you get that, once I was sitting with all of that, I was like,
Right.
what do I do?
It's executing a plan of how we want to be in the world. It's not always about what do we want to do. In business, there's steps we need to do to get the results that we want to get, the results we want to have. So there's doing and getting. But in human behavior, it's being. It's really being. Who do we get to be to create the results that we want? And it's in the book, I give some very specific instances that happened to me over my career, and I weave that around a lesson. So, I share an example. If 40 years in business, you deal with a lot of stuff. You deal with a lot of stuff. So I picked out a couple of key, really crisis episodes where I saw that when I was in the middle of it, it was almost impossible to see. But then like one thing, like a split second would change. It would either be, I would like step back and see somebody for who they really were, or I would see the truth about a situation that, our ego wants to not allow us to see. because if we see it, we have to admit that we're a part of this scene.
And it wants to protect us, right? It wants to keep us safe. It wants to keep us in the same. It doesn't want us to have change, because that means we have to see those parts, right?
Yes, exactly. And seeing those parts is really difficult. Our ego wants to be fed all the time. So when we think about executing a plan, and where do we start with this plan, I would suggest looking at where you have replicating negative outcomes in relationships or situations. So because what happens is when we're on the precipice of a crisis or a disaster, there really, I coach an online course, and this was our last episode, was really going deep on this concept about creating a timeline for ourselves. And when we're on the precipice of the crisis, there's a few things that we start to really let go of. And usually the first one is our confidence starts to slip away, right? We start to question ourselves, like, do I really know what I'm doing? Am I good enough? Are they going to find me out? Like, oh my God, I'm kind of faking this here. Like I'm talking about something I don't know, right?
The worthiness and the imposter syndrome it's rampant right now.
Oh my gosh, it sucks up so much of our energy. In my time management course, the time class, we talk a lot about how much time we waste spending it on, spending our energy in situations that are going to come out the same way all the time. So the first thing, we're sliding down into the dark crevasse where the ego is running us, and we're losing some confidence. And then we start making decisions that are not in alignment with our integrity, maybe. Like we want a shortcut because we're starting to feel desperate, right? We're like, oh my God, this can't be happening. I have to stop it. I have to put the brakes on here. This relationship can't fall apart. I can't go through another divorce. I can't fire another employee who I love and we're friends, but I caught her doing something wrong in my company. So we start to operate with a little less integrity than we would like to see ourselves in. And then the really big piece is the values. Once we start to lose sight of the values that we really value about ourselves and how we get to be in the world, when the values are lost, we find ourselves like truly in a dark hole. This is where a lot of people will come up with like an overwhelming sense of exhaustion. So when people are constantly feeling exhausted and like I'm stuck, I'm really stuck. We're operating in a sense of ego, but usually that exhaustion, unless you're sleeping 4 hours a night and running yourself ragged during the day, that's a different kind of exhaustion. But when it's emotional exhaustion, it really, I believe from, the 1,000 books I've read and been doing self-development work since 27 years old, that it comes from not living the life we know is possible for ourselves.
Oh, wow. Yes.
And when we're out of alignment,
it's that piece of us inside, right?
Yes.
Okay, so sorry, I interrupted that alignment. No. Go through the alignment.
We have a vision for ourselves. And when we are living out of alignment with that vision for ourselves, because we're not quite sure how to get there, because we have to meet a part of ourselves that we don't yet know, it's really, it can keep us hiding under the bed for a long time.
And I think it does. And I think that's where people get discouraged, right? And they don't know how. They don't feel they can reach out and ask questions, right? I think one of our mentors says, you find somebody who's doing what you want to do.
Right.
Right.
And you emulate what works, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. One of the things that I see, because who I primarily coach in my private practice are females to scale their companies to the 7-figure mark, because less than 2% of women in this country can generate a revenue of $1 million or more, which is a staggering.
That's staggering.
Low number. It's a staggering low number.
Yeah.
So, I have a commitment to, and there's so many steps that we can take in business. I'm a firm believer in systematizing everything. One of the companies that I had, we had multiple locations. So in order for me to open multiple locations, I had to build rock solid systems. And I really started looking at every single piece of the business. Scripts for how the phone was answered, scripts for the 4 primary questions we got on the phone, scripts for our interview process, a process for our onboarding, our training. Everything had a system built around it. And somebody said to me about a year ago, you have a system for the system. Having the system as the leader in the company, what it does is it answers questions for other people, because when we're running a company and we're too busy to look at putting the proper systems in place, people tend to make things up,
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And you've owned companies, you've grown companies,
yes.
and you know exactly what I'm talking about. You think they're doing what you have in your head to grow the company.
Absolutely.
And they're doing something different, totally different. And then, as the owner of the company, you get to clean up the mess.
Yes.
I just had this conversation with somebody this morning. The spaghetti rolls uphill. It rolls uphill. As the owner of the company, you get to deal with all of the problems.
Yeah.
And those problems come when there's not a clear, specific process in place and a clear vision of why people are doing what they're doing in your company.
Oh my goodness. This has been so powerful. We're jam-packed in because we're talking about the personal part and the stuff that you're talking about right now, and the stuff that, because I'm, launching a few new things myself, and you are my mind's blown.
Well, thank you, Kim. It came from deconstructing what I did for 40 years. Yeah. So, the last company that we started, I really wanted to apply all of the principles that I had learned. And I went in thinking, for the first 9 months, I'm basically living here to create culture, to really get everybody on board with what is the vision, not just my vision, but what is your vision? How does coming here to work every day serve you in the highest way possible? And really supporting people in their vision. And it's really such a beautiful thing. It really, truly is. When I wrote my first book, Streamline Success, what I wanted to do, I was mostly a single mother during rapid growth for many years. My children were small. They were 5 and 9 when I became single. And I was just opening a company that really, the concept didn't exist in our region at all. So there was no staff for it. I had to create a market. I had to build a staff. I had to hand train staff. I really had to just set the table to allow people to see why they would want to spend money in this business that was a concept they didn't even think about before, while I was a single mother. And my kids were involved in every part of it. They came into the business with me on Saturday, and they did laundry when they were 6 and 10 years old. Wow. And they were actually working in my business. So I got to put them on payroll and then put that money into a 401k plan or a Roth IRA for them, starting when they were 6 and 10 years old. And I could do that legally because they came in every Saturday morning to work with me. Would they have rather been staying overnight at their friends? They came in and they actually worked for, at least a half a day. And if they had friends who stayed overnight, their friends came in and worked right along my kids, and they thought it was the coolest thing. And they'd get dollars and pats on the back, and they learn communication skills in a way that, both of my children who are now adults are very entrepreneurial minded. And it's because I didn't separate my business life from my family life.
No, I grew up, my father was a teacher, but entrepreneurial. And from the time I was a young girl, handing him, TV tubes, I've talked about it before, to him as a 5-year-old, and growing all the way up, right until I left home. And what did I do? Followed right in his footsteps. Yes.
So I love that, Kim. So what were some of the challenges that you had when you were first starting out?
When I is letting go of the control. That was the biggest thing I had a hard time, because I felt like I had to do it all, and having somebody else do it I just didn't have the skills, and I didn't have the trust to have somebody else do it. It was hard.
Right. That's one of the hardest things, especially for females, holding other people accountable.
Yeah.
Really, it's really difficult because females are conditioned to be people pleasers.
Yes.
So, we over deliver to make other people feel good and feel comfortable, often at our own expense.
Yes.
And it's hard to hold people accountable, not for everybody, but for the majority of women that I see. That's
No.
so
Yeah.
what I was
You're
just saying
speaking
was,
to me.
yes. Now, when we're growing a company, there are the systems we put in place, but the biggest piece of it is really mindset. It's really mindset. And when things are happening in your company, like for any of you who are watching, if you start noticing a pattern, staff stay for a year and then they leave. Clients stay for a year, but then they leave. Clients don't ever spend more money. Like you can't get your average ticket price up. You can't get your average sale up. Whenever you start to see those kinds of patterns happening, and this is one of the hardest things I see for entrepreneurs, like, by gosh, I'm right. I got myself here. I created this business. It can't be my fault that this is happening. And I'll hear things like, it's the industry. Oh, it's the industry. Well, that's just what happens. That's just what happens in this industry. It's absolutely not the industry. It's you. And how do you show up to people and asking for that authentic feedback? People are mostly terrified to give us authentic feedback.
Yes.
So, about 20 years ago, I did some workshops with Marshall Goldsmith, and I just loved him. Really, really love his principles and concepts. And my favorite book from him is "What Got You Here Won't Get You There." And I realized,
love that saying, but wow.
Isn't that,
yes.
Yes. And it's so true. Like what got you to this point in life today isn't what's going to carry you further, right? We have to learn something about ourselves that we don't know. We haven't met that person yet who can make $1 million if we're at the 500,000 mark. We have to be somebody different to do that. And we have to view ourselves differently. And so I really at that time got very heavy into 360-degree feedback. And it was hard. I mean, I had a management team and HR department. They were all terrified to give me authentic feedback. And I had to really set the table that I wanted to hear the things that they went home and kind of complained about their partner or their spouse to about me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I said it just like that. Look, if there's something that I'm doing in this business and you don't like it and you're not being authentic with me, but you go home and you kind of bitch about me to your husband, how do I know to change it? So you're telling me that everything is okay when it's not. So I invite you, and I there's no judgment call here. I want to know how to be a better leader for you. Like, please call me forth. And it took about a year to get everybody conditioned to really have these deep and authentic conversations. And it was a game changer. It was a game changer, Kim.
Oh my goodness. Wow. You really have hit on something. And a lot of the reason why I really wanted to have you on today is because next week we're having our mentor series. So we have a mentor every single day next week. And that leadership piece, that mentoring piece, being able to get out of your own way, those are things that either don't come easily. They have to be taught and they have to be learned.
Right. And it's terrifying. It can be terrifying.
Yeah. And then having that mirror, we talked a little bit about that, right? You were just talking about, tell me what can be better, what can be different. And then having that mirror come up, right? And then not being defensive, right? Well, there's a reason why I did that, right? I think that's huge.
Yes. Yes. Very much so. Very, very
hard. Was it hard for you to hear some of those things?
No, I mean, it's all how we frame it. It's all how we frame it. So I could have framed it as, oh my God, this is so hard to hear, or, oh my gosh, this is such an opportunity for me to improve what kind of a leader I am. So I chose to look at things that way. And once my staff really got that in their gut, hey, she doesn't want us blowing smoke up her skirt. She truly, truly wants to be a better leader for us. They felt it, they felt it. And I could sense it
Did you see a change happen in the company when that happened?
Yes, we had rapid growth. We had a lot of growth, a lot of revenue growth, a lot of staffing growth, really very positive results from doing that. And I think the main thing was the culture. The main thing was the culture. And it was interesting. A lot of competitors out there, when I first opened, I had no competitors. And then over the decades, I got competitors. And they couldn't understand what was different about my business. And this is, if you're a business owner and you're sort of trash talking your competitor, it's just not nice. It's just not nice.
No,
it's not. I was supposed to start working with a young lady about a year ago. She had read both of my books and wanted to work with me on growing her business. So I went in to meet with her for the first time, and she talked a lot about how terrible her former bosses were before she left and started her own business. And it was a lot of negativity, and I just didn't feel the energy connection. And I said, when you are able to look at the one thing in common with the jobs you didn't like and your unhappiness was you, when you're willing to see that you set it up to put yourself with personalities previously, and clearly you saw a change and you wanted to open your own business. But when you're really ready to look at why you invited those kinds of, according to you, toxic relationships to lead you, call me, because this is not the kind of consulting that I want to do. I'm all about being responsible for yourself, taking responsibility for every single thing in our life, in our business, in our family, in our relationships. And when somebody's blaming anything on anybody else, that's not taking responsibility. That's a crutch. And so because I want my clients to win, I'd like to work with people who are willing to do whatever it takes.
Yeah, no, I love that. We've been so in depth in talking here, and there's been lots of comments, but I wanted to find a stopping point for us to do that.
Yes, please.
So Sandra's just given big hearts. Judy, no more victim model. I'm freeing when I wrap our heads around it. So it's not up to us to change others. The more we work on ourselves, the happier we become. Oh, absolutely.
Yes. Oh my gosh, Judy, thank you so much for saying that.
Yes.
I really, and yes, Dr. Judy Hunt, she's amazing. So I really, truly appreciate you saying that, because the more comfortable we get with ourselves, everything around us starts to improve.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we attract exactly what we are running away from.
Yes. Yes. Sandra said, Dr. Krishnan. Yes. Also brilliant woman. This is how I like to say it. We chase what we run from. We run from people who will hurt us, but subconsciously we're chasing the people that have the same personality traits of the people who hurt us when we were young.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And a Facebook group is agreeing with us. To go higher, we need to know the truth that helps us break out of old thinking.
Yes.
Truth and love, honesty, integrity. So thank you. And Facebook user, thank you so much. In the future, if you click StreamYard at the top, then we get to know who you are and engage with that. But thank you so much for the comments. Wow. Yeah. And it just keeps going.
Hey, thank you. Oh my gosh. Thank you for spending your time being on here with Kim and myself.
Oh, so absolutely.
I truly appreciate that.
Yeah. So is there, you know what? The one thing I was so excited about doing this is I did not put a banner in, and I apologize, is how can they contact you? And I'll type it in right now.
Yes. Okay. So on Facebook, I have a private group for business growth called Streamline Success. And it's nice. We have about 500 members in there right now. My profile page, Dorothy Andreas, I don't have a page. I just use my profile. And because, life and business are kind of connected there. On Instagram, it's Streamline Success, at Streamline Success. And on LinkedIn, it's at Dorothy Andreas. And then my website is streamlinesuccess.com.
Okay. And is there a gift you would like to send to them, or?
So if you go to my website, there's a form on there. If you fill that form
Streamline
out,
Success, right?
Streamlinesuccess.com. If you fill that form out, and I believe there's like a couple of questions on there, like what area of life would you like to see growth in? I will send you something from my training that is particular to the kind of growth that you want to see.
Wow, you got it. You got it custom. Everyone, go do it, because this is custom.
It really is. I mean, there might be 10 or 12 things that I already have, but it's usually, it's personal growth, it's professional growth, it's emotional growth, it's emotional intelligence, it's relationship situations, it's hiring people, it's firing people, eliminating chaos or avoiding chaos in your company. So yes, please reach out to me.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Dorothy. I so appreciate this. The list is long as far as the goodies that came out of this. There's the alignment piece. I'm going to go back and redo this and probably do some quotes up in for this, but thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to make sure?
I think if there is anything that I want to leave people with is, do not be afraid to look at what makes you uncomfortable. Embrace what makes you uncomfortable, because that's the rich soil for growth.
Isn't it just it's magic, right?
Yes, it really is.
I talk about this all the time with the Coffee with Kim. I didn't even want to be in front of a video, let alone do a live show. But
Kim, I've watched your shows. First of all, you really bring great guests on here, and it's like I always learn something when I'm watching your show. I'm always learning something, and I really appreciate that. I think you talk about things that a lot of other people don't talk about, and that's really, there's not a lot of places you can go and get that level of information.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And it's guests like you, I have made it very apparent to you and others I've talked to how excited I've been to have you on the show, because you are a wealth of knowledge. You are someone I look up to learn from as well. So thank you for bringing huge value here today.
Oh my gosh, Kim, thank you so much. Really, truly, it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun being on here talking about the juicy subjects of conflict.
I know. All right, everyone. Okay. Oh my goodness. What a day. This was huge. And it looks like I'm a little bit delayed in my video. So hopefully this records okay. But everyone, have a wonderful day. And we will see you next week for our week-long mentoring series.